Welcome back. The absolute clueless in this country, also known as the politicians, will tell you that there are 11 million illegal aliens in the country. But smart people like yours truly know that that's completely garbage and that the number is probably closer to 30 million, if not above that. The catch is this: we don't know what we don't know. When people are here illegally, it's basically a guesstimate. I mean, I remember the days back in Ronald Reagan. He thought he was going to give amnesty to 1 million people. It turns out to be 4 million people. So get that. But here is what we do know. According to the Department of Homeland Security, more than 250,000 illegal aliens, about 235,000, were deported by the government in 2015. And even that is debatable. We'll get to that in a second. 59% of those had criminal convictions. And of the remaining, almost all of them were apprehended at the border. Overwhelmingly, the majority of those deported were from Mexico. Interestingly, in the ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations report, there is not a single mention made of costs, meaning how much it costs. Here to discuss the idea of whether we can deport all the illegal aliens, and as Donald Trump says, have Mexico built for a big, huge old wall, is Dan Stein. He is from FAIR, the Federation of Americans for Immigration Reform, and he joins us from Washington, D.C. Also here in studio is Bill Tucker, Emmy Award-winning reporter and Newsmax contributor. Guys, before we actually start discussing this topic, I want to show my audience a clip from They Come to America 3, The Cost of Obama's Legacy.
Now, right now, there are more Border Patrol agents and surveillance resources on the ground than at any time in our history. And we deport almost 400,000 migrants each year.
Oh, come on, Mr. President. You know you changed the definition of a deportation. Your numbers are tainted because see those people in the water right there? When they try to leave Mexico and then enter over to the U.S. and they're caught by that Border Patrol agent right there, he's going to take them over to that international bridge and they're going to go back home. That has never been considered a deportation. You are counting it as a deportation. And then when they go back into the water and try doing it again, maybe 5 times more that day, you'll consider that 5 more deportations.
Mr. Dan Stein, I'm going to start with you. Aside from the fact that Obama has basically made everything work the way he wants it to work, and including how we count deportations, I have a question for you. There is a video that just was released about, I think, 2 days ago, and it is of the European nations deporting the recent migrants that have gone there. They're deporting them by the boatload to Turkey. Can we do the same thing here? Can we just send people home? Do we have to make it such a big, huge process?
Well, of course, it depends on how long the people have been here and the conditions under which they've been caught. Like if they're coming right across the border and they're caught right then, yeah, you can send them right back. But once they've been here for any length of time, we have this procedural process that takes a very long time. People get a court date, goes on for years, they disappear, never find them again. Look, we're not just talking about amnesty anymore. As a nation, Dennis, we're talking about anarchy, immigration anarchy. And this administration has destroyed the immigration adjudications process. If you could restore a summary process, basically saying, look, you either have a right to be in the country or you don't, one shot at asylum claim, summary hearing, and then you're out, you could get it done very cheaply. The whole theory of deterrence is if you deport a small number of people in a highly visible fashion, as we see now happening in the EU, that ripples throughout the community as well as those who intend to come in the future. They get the message, and a lot of the problem ultimately solves itself.
Bill, I just want to grab everybody in a big, huge net. nicely, humanely, if there is such a way of doing that. But you know, I'm joking. I want to humanely deport everybody. I want to take the one-time hit, the one-time financial hit, and rid of the illegal immigration problem in this country.
Well, the problem is twofold. One, we do have immigration anarchy in this country, and it's undeniable. And it's not just Obama that's done it. Let's be clear, the Bush administration before him was deeply involved in making it as anarchic as they possibly could. Second, yeah, we could do it. But all of the estimates involved with doing it don't involve a one-time immediate, okay, let's all go back. It does involve a lot of procedure, and by best estimates, 20 years to deport 11 million people that they say are in the country. American Action Forum, all of its numbers based on cost, are based on a 20-year deportation period, which I've got to disagree with people here because we want a little disagreement in this. So I've got to make an argument that I don't totally buy, but we can deport them. It's a matter of will, don't you think?
Well, I know it's just a matter of will. It's a matter of people wanting to keep cheap labor in the country.
Sure.
All right. So I mean, that's basically, it all comes down to dollars and cents. You know what? Let's even roll this back a little bit, Dan. When we hear these numbers, these 11 million numbers, I mean, where is that number actually coming from?
Well, look, it assumes an elaborate, like O.J. Simpson's procedural process in a civil immigration hearing. This is not a criminal trial. Whether you're deportable or not is a civil status, like Social Security benefits. You either have a right to be in the country or not. Deportation is not a criminal conviction. You're not going to be incarcerated in your home country. You're going back home to live, prosper, buy property, get a job, get married, and do whatever people do as citizens in your own country. And so what has happened is we've created these layers of procedural process that make it long and expensive, unnecessarily so, in removing aliens. The fact that it takes years to even get a court hearing, that everybody gets multiple bites at the apple to delay deportation through motions to reopen, change circumstances motions, asylum claims, defensive asylum claims, withholding of deportation claims, torture convention claims. It goes on forever, and so nobody goes home. So in the end, nobody's going to accept an amnesty program unless we fix the system. And you start by saying, how did we get in this mess? And then engineer a solution that moving forward says it's not going to happen anymore.
You know, Dan, one of the things that FAIR does phenomenally, you guys are the best at it, is when you equate the costs of the illegal immigration problem in this country. Right now, every year, how much does it cost in general for illegal immigration for all the people who are here? How much does it cost in taxpayers?
Well, over $100 billion. And we already talk about the $25 billion that gets sent out of the country in remittances back to Mexico and all other parts of the world as well. I mean, the United States is not the ATM for the world. For people to come here and send remittances back home, immigration is not supposed to be a component of foreign aid. It's not supposed to stress our schools. The most expensive component of illegal immigration is public education, hugely expensive. And yet they talk about deportation. Remember, what we have in the law is something called a registry date. If you want to set something that says, if you can prove you've been legally resident as of a certain date, you can adjust to green card status, you move the registry date up from to what is now 1972 to say 1995. And then you say, if you haven't been here since that date, you got 6 months to get out of the country. If we find you, we're going to deport you, and you're never going to come back in, you're never going to get a green card. The deterrence factor is critical in how you manage borders. And this administration, unlike W, yeah, sure, you're right, Bill. They weakened a lot of enforcement. They did a lot of things that were basically too hard to do. They said, well, let's let people stay. But they did not maliciously attack, destroy, dissemble, and destruct, leave destruction in their wake. And what we now have is a totally dysfunctional immigration system. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, but Dan, how do you answer the question? Douglas Holtz-Egan, the former budget manager of the CBO, he's the guy behind American Action Forum. And he's a highly respectable guy. He says it will cost on the high end close to $1 trillion over 20 years to get rid of all the illegal immigrants in this country now. You're saying it costs us $100 billion a year. I mean, those numbers don't match. So how do you answer somebody like Holtz-Egan?
How can it cost $1 trillion to do what is essentially a civil benefit hearing? No different than the question, are you eligible
because you know
for
that's
Social
not going to happen,
Security
Dan.
or
I
not?
mean, that's what we ultimately know here. That's not going to happen because they're going to go through, Dennis, just all of that litany of stuff that Dan ran down.
Dan, let me jump in for 1 second. Because I want to lay out what my plan was for immigration when I was considering a run for office. I believe that a lot of the cost that, the $1 trillion everybody's talking about, first of all, I think it's BS. Secondly, what I would like to do is I would like to offer these people an opportunity. You've got 6 months to get your affairs in order. Take the cash you've got in your pillow or whatever it may be. I'm not going to tax you. I'm not going to fine you. I'm not going to ask you where your cousin is. I'm just going to tell you to go home without any problems whatsoever. Just go home and start your life at home. If you don't, 6 months from now, when I fine you, your ass is going to be in jail. I think a lot of people, when they know they can't get a job anymore, they're going to go home. What say you, Dan?
Michael, You're talking about the deterrence factor. Look at, after SB 1070 passed in Arizona, the illegal working population left the state. What happened? Wages went up, employers had to pay more, schools became less crowded, people had actually more opportunity for unionization, bargaining leverage went up, employers made do, they had to do what they had to do to adjust, but ultimately the community is far better off. If you require employers to hire legal workers, a country should do its own work. And if we go down this path of border anarchy, we lose our national self-determination. These economists don't understand. Slavery was defended as an economic benefit to the southern planters. That's why they wanted it. But a system of labor exploitation doesn't benefit anybody.
Hey, Dan, I only got 20 seconds left. Question for you. When you guys do that $100 billion estimate, do you base that off the 11 million people that they say? I got 5 seconds.
Well, we use the census data, 11 million, and we look at state and local and federal costs, direct and indirect costs.
All right, so there could be an argument that says that you guys are even, to a certain degree, underestimating the total amount that it's costing
Absolutely.
us because of all the people we can't find. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Dan. Don't go away. We'll be back.